China's largest construction machines aren't just big, they're so unusual they look like they belong on another planet. We're talking about machines that walk on the bridges they're building, ships that manufacture entire islands from the ocean floor, and pavers that build highways with zero humans behind the wheel. One of them, the Zhenhua 30, can lift over 12,000 tons in a single hoist. That's the weight of roughly 8,000 cars at the same time. You heard that right. 8,000 cars, lifted clean out of the water by one machine. By the end of this countdown, you'll understand why engineers around the world are quietly studying these beasts and why the rest of the planet is further behind than you think. Let's start at number 10 and work our way up to the strangest machine of them all. Hashone 0WK 75 rope shovel. Picture the biggest excavator you've ever seen at a construction site in your city. That bright yellow machine clawing at the dirt, scooping a few cubic yards at a time. Now multiply that thing by 100, and you're starting to get close to what the WK75 actually is. This monster stands almost 78 feet tall. That's the height of a 7-story building just standing there in a mining pit waiting to eat the earth. It weighs around 2,000 tons. Its tracks alone are taller than you are. If you stood next to one of them, you wouldn't even reach the top of a single tread. And here's the part that should make your jaw drop its bucket. Scoops up around 98 cubic yards of rock and dirt in a single bite. That's roughly 12,000 tons of material an hour. You heard that right. 12,000 tons every 60 minutes. In a single month, this machine can pull around 5 million tons of coal out of the ground. To put that in perspective, that's enough material to fill an entire lake bed in under a year. And the wildest part? It doesn't even run on diesel. It runs on electricity, with the equivalent power of 50 cars firing on all cylinders at once. Most countries on Earth import shovels of this size from a small handful of manufacturers. China builds them, operates fleets of them, and exports them to mines on 3 different continents. When you watch one work on video, your brain refuses to accept the scale. The trucks loading next to it look like toys. The workers look like specks of dust. But size on land is one thing. The next machine on this list doesn't just dig the earth, it climbs it. #9 XCMG ET120 Spider Excavator. Imagine a regular excavator, the kind you've seen 1,000 times on the side of a highway. Now imagine that machine, sprouting 4 articulated legs and walking up the side of a mountain like a giant mechanical insect. That's the XCMG ET120, and it's one of the strangest construction machines you'll ever lay eyes on. This thing doesn't roll on tracks or wheels the way every other excavator on the planet does. It moves on 4 hydraulic legs that bend, extend, and grip the terrain like an actual spider hunting for footing. Steep mountainsides, deep ravines, swampland, dense forest, post-earthquake rubble places where no wheeled or tracked machine could ever follow you in. The ET120 walks through all of it like the laws of access don't apply. But here's where it gets unusual. This isn't really a construction machine in the traditional sense. It's a rescue machine. When earthquakes flatten mountain villages in China, when landslides bury roads, when wildfires tear through forests no truck can reach, this is the machine they send in. It's arm swaps between attachments on demand. One minute it's drilling. The next, it's cutting trees. The next, it's lifting collapsed concrete off survivors. It can even spray fire suppressant directly into burning structures. And the operator? Nowhere near it. The whole thing is controlled remotely from a safe distance, sometimes miles away. No human ever has to step into the danger zone. People online have started calling it the steel mantis, and once you watch it crawl sideways across a cliff face that would terrify a mountain goat, you understand exactly why. This isn't a vehicle anymore. It's a creature. But climbing terrain is one challenge. The next machine on this list grinds straight through it. Tesmec M5 Giant Trencher. Think of a chainsaw, the kind you'd use to cut down a tree in your backyard. Now imagine that chainsaw, the size of a house, weighing about 85 tons, and instead of slicing through wood, it's tearing through solid granite like it's stale bread. That's the Tesmec M5, and it's one of the most unusual machines China deploys when ordinary equipment simply gives up. Here's the problem this machine was built to solve. When you need to lay a gas pipeline, run an underground power cable, or carve an irrigation channel through terrain so hard it laughs at conventional excavators, you've hit a wall. Volcanic rock, granite shelves, compacted ground that's been sitting undisturbed for thousands of years. Every other piece of equipment on Earth taps out. The M5 just smiles and starts cutting. Its cutting chain is enormous, and it spins surprisingly slowly. That's the trick. Slow rotation, but with around 440 horsepower of brute force grinding behind every single tooth. The chain doesn't try to outrun the rock, it outmuscles it. And the result is something almost beautiful. A perfectly straight trench, several yards deep, with clean vertical walls so smooth they look like they were poured from concrete. You heard that right. It carves through bedrock and leaves behind walls flat enough to measure with a level. Now here's the part that quietly blows engineers' minds. The M5 barely moves. We're talking a crawl so slow you could walk circles around it sipping coffee. But that doesn't matter. It's guided by GPS, holding its depth and direction automatically, with a smart electronic system that lets it operate almost entirely on its own. It doesn't need to be fast. Wherever it goes, no rock is left standing in its path. But cutting through rock at ground level is one thing. The next machine on this list defies gravity itself. #7 Zoomlion 101 Meter Concrete Pump Truck. Here's a problem most people have never thought about. When workers are pouring the 80th floor of a skyscraper, how does the wet concrete actually get up there? You can't carry it in buckets. You can't crane it up in batches without it hardening. And concrete is heavy over 240 pounds per cubic foot. Pumping at 300 feet straight up into the sky should be physically impossible. The pressure alone should rip the pipes apart. The mix should separate halfway up. That's where the Zoomlion 101 meter pump truck comes in. And what it pulls off genuinely violates what you'd expect from fluid dynamics. This machine has a 7-section carbon fiber boom that unfolds into the sky like a robotic arm reaching out of a science fiction movie. Fully extended, it stretches over 330 feet upward. That's a 30-story vertical throw of liquid concrete, arriving at the top with the exact same consistency it had at ground level. You heard that right. 330 feet of vertical pumping, and the mix doesn't separate, doesn't harden, doesn't lose pressure. It pumps around 210 cubic yards of concrete per hour through pipes that are fighting gravity every single inch of the way. Traditional pumps lose pressure, and the concrete starts breaking down at less than half this height. The Zoomlion compensates in real time. Sensors throughout the boom constantly read the angle, the viscosity of the mix, the air pressure, the temperature, and adjust pump output thousands of times a minute to keep everything stable. This is the machine that poured the upper floors of Shanghai Tower, blasting concrete over 1,000 feet above the ground. The boom flexes visibly during operation. It sways in the wind. But the calibrated arc never breaks. The concrete just keeps arriving, perfectly mixed, ready to set. But pumping concrete is still a one-way job. The next machine doesn't just build the bridge, it walks across the bridge it just finished. #6 SLJ 900 Iron Monster Bridge Builder. Stop and try to wrap your head around what this machine does, because it sounds like a riddle. The SLJ 900, nicknamed the Iron Monster, is a machine that builds the bridge it's standing on. Then it walks itself onto the section it just finished placing. Then it does it all over again, and again, and again, mile after mile, until an entire highway in the sky exists where there was nothing before. Let's set the scene. This thing is around 300 feet long. It weighs over 1,000 tons. It rolls on 64 massive wheels, distributed along its body so the load spreads evenly. And in its claws, it's gripping a single bridge segment that weighs around 750 tons. You heard that right. 750 tons, suspended in the air, being carried forward by a machine that itself weighs more than most cargo ships. Here's the move. It picks up the segment from a staging area. It rolls forward to the edge of the unfinished bridge. It extends out over open space, sometimes hundreds of feet above a river or a canyon, and lowers that segment into place with millimeter precision. The concrete locks. Connections cure. And now comes the impossible part. The machine drives itself forward onto that brand new piece of bridge, supporting its full 1,000-ton weight on concrete that just locked into place 60 seconds ago. That should not work. Engineers in the West looked at the original concept drawings and said, you couldn't build a machine heavy enough to carry bridge segments that could also stand on those same segments without cracking them. The Iron Monster does both at the same time, and it does it autonomously, calculating weight distribution and structural integrity in real time as it advances. Bridge sections that used to take crews 3 months to install now go up in around 2 hours. But laying bridges across valleys is one thing. The next machine builds something even more ambitious, at speeds that turn months of work into single shifts. #5 CPG 500 Track Laying Machine. Here's a question that should bother you. How does a country go from having almost no high-speed rail to building over 30,000 miles of it in roughly 2 decades? That's more high-speed track than the rest of the world combined. It didn't happen with armies of workers swinging hammers. It happened because of a single, quietly terrifying machine called the CPG 500. This isn't really a vehicle. It's a rolling factory on rails. Picture an 800-ton steel beast crawling forward across raw earth, and behind it, finished railway track is just appearing out of thin air. Sleepers, rails, ballast, all locked into place in one continuous motion. It carries up to 1,600 feet of pre-assembled track on its body at any given time, feeding it down behind itself like a mechanical spider spinning a web of steel. In a single shift, this machine lays around 1¼ miles of finished track. You heard that right, over a mile of high-speed railway, complete and ready for trains, in one work shift. And it doesn't stop when the sun goes down. It runs day and night, pushing forward relentlessly, working with rails up to 1,600 feet long, something that was completely unthinkable using traditional methods just 20 years ago. But here's what should genuinely impress you. The margin of error on this machine is less than ½ an inch. We're talking about laying rails over distances of thousands of feet, in mountain passes and across deserts, holding precision tight enough that bullet trains traveling over 200 miles an hour can ride on it safely. Laser-guided alignment systems survey the terrain ahead, calculate the exact geometry needed for curves and grades, and adjust placement automatically as the machine advances. And it's not staying inside China anymore. The CPG 500 has been exported to Indonesia, Malaysia, Serbia, and even the desert circling line in Xinjiang. It is the silent reason China leapfrogged the entire world in rail. But laying railway across solid land is one thing. The next machine on this list builds the land itself. #4 Tian Kunhao Dredging Vessel. This next one isn't a construction machine in the way you'd normally think of one. It doesn't dig foundations. It doesn't lay pipe. It doesn't pour concrete. It does something far stranger. It manufactures land where there was only open ocean. Meet the Tian Kunhao, a 460-foot dredging vessel that floats out into the sea, lowers a massive cutting head down through the water, and starts grinding the seafloor itself into rubble. Its cutter spins at 30 revolutions per minute, armed with tungsten carbide teeth that shred through underwater rock like it's wet cardboard. We're talking around 6,000 kilowatts of cutting force concentrated on a single rotating head. Granite, basalt, compacted seabed, none of it stands a chance. But here's where your brain should refuse to accept what's happening. The ship can vacuum up over 1 million cubic yards of pulverized seafloor every single day. You heard that right, 1 million cubic yards. Daily. And it doesn't just dump that material nearby. It pumps that liquefied earth through enormous pipes and deposits it precisely up to 9 miles away from the ship, exactly where engineers want new land to exist. Let that sink in. This machine is sucking up underwater mountains and spitting them back out as new countries' worth of real estate, miles from where it started. It can dredge over 115 feet below the surface, and the positional accuracy of the deposit is measured in feet, not yards. The Tian Kunhao has built entire island chains in the South China Sea, some of them spanning over 600 acres, completed in months. And these aren't loose sand piles. that wash away in the next typhoon. They're stable, bedrock-grade landmasses that now host runways, buildings, and infrastructure. Real maps had to be redrawn because of what this single ship has done. But creating land from the ocean is one kind of impossible. The next machine on this list does the opposite. It disappears under the city and reshapes it from underneath without anyone above ever knowing. #3. Jinghua Tunnel Boring Machine. Right now, as you're listening to this, there are machines moving silently beneath some of the largest cities in the world. Cities where millions of people walk, drive, and live their daily lives without the slightest clue that 50 feet beneath their feet, a steel monster is chewing through the earth. The Jinghua is one of the largest of them, and what it pulled off under Beijing should not have been possible. Try to picture this thing. Its cutting head is around 53 feet in diameter. That's wider than a 5-story building is tall, just spinning in the dark, grinding forward inch by inch. The full body of the machine stretches roughly 490 feet long, and it weighs around 4,300 tons. You heard that right. 4,300 tons of steel, moving underneath one of the most densely populated cities on the planet, and nobody on the surface felt a thing. Its mission was to drill over 4 miles of tunnel beneath the East 6th Ring, one of Beijing's busiest road corridors. But the ground was a nightmare. It was full of sand, water-saturated soil, and soft clay layers that could collapse without warning. One miscalculation, and entire city blocks above could have caved in. Sinkholes in the middle of rush-hour traffic, buildings tilting overnight. But the Jinghua handled it. Here's how. As its cutter head ground forward, the machine simultaneously pumped pressurized slurry into the tunnel walls to hold them in place while installing concrete lining segments behind the cutter, all in one continuous motion. Cutting, stabilizing, sealing happening in the same second. In its best month, it pushed forward over 1,600 feet without a single surface incident. And here's what should genuinely shock you. Just 20 years ago, China didn't even manufacture machines like this. Today, Chinese-built tunnel borers make up nearly 70% of the entire global market. But drilling underground is one kind of audacity. The next machine on this list does its work where physics says no stable platform should exist at all. #2. Zhenhua 30 Floating Crane. Now we get to the machine you met in the intro, the one that lifts the equivalent of 8,000 cars in a single hoist. But that number alone doesn't capture how unusual the Zhenhua 30 actually is. The truly impossible part isn't the weight. It's where it does the lifting. Picture a vessel almost 3 football fields long, roughly 980 feet from bow to stern. Twin lifting booms, reaching nearly 400 feet into the sky. A lifting capacity of over 12,000 tons. And here's the part that violates everything you know about ships and physics. It does all of this while floating in open ocean. Not a harbor, not a calm bay. Open sea, with swells that would send cargo vessels back to port. Most heavy lift cranes on Earth need to be bolted to bedrock. Stable ground, zero movement. Lifting 12,000 tons from a moving platform should be flat out impossible because the load itself shifts the center of gravity of the entire vessel as it rises. One wave catches it wrong, and the whole thing capsizes. So how does the Zhenhua 30 stay perfectly still? It uses dynamic positioning. 8 massive thrusters fire continuously, making micro adjustments every single second to counteract waves, wind, currents, and the shifting weight of the load above. The crane doesn't sway, it doesn't wobble, it doesn't hesitate. You could balance a glass of water on the cargo while it's lifting, and you wouldn't see a ripple. This is the machine that built the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge, the longest sea bridge on Earth. Its job was to place massive, prefabricated tunnel sections onto the ocean floor with precision tighter than 4 inches across spans of hundreds of feet. You heard that right, 4 inches of error tolerance. In open water, while lifting 12,000 tons. It also functions as a floating town. 380 crew live aboard, full workshops, ocean-going propulsion. It's a city that lifts mountains. But as wild as the Zhenhua 30 sounds, the most unusual machine on this list isn't defined by size or weight. It's defined by what's missing from it entirely. Hasson, Sani, autonomous asphalt paver. Now we arrive at number 1. And here's the twist you didn't see coming. The strangest, most unusual construction machine in all of China isn't the biggest, it isn't the heaviest, it isn't the tallest. On paper, it actually looks almost ordinary compared to everything else on this list. What makes it the number 1 entry is something far more disturbing. It's what's missing from it entirely. There's no driver, no operator, no human in the cab, no human anywhere near it. In 2025, a Sani autonomous asphalt paver did something that had never been done before in the entire history of construction. It built over 98 miles of finished highway completely on its own. No one steering, no one giving live commands, no one inside the machine at all. You heard that right. 98 miles of public road, paved end to end, with 0 humans behind any wheel. And it didn't just lay a narrow strip the way every other paver in the world does. In a single pass, it laid down a continuous layer of asphalt over 62 feet wide. That's wider than a 6-lane highway in one single motion. Something that has literally never been pulled off before by any machine, anywhere on Earth. But here's where it gets genuinely strange. The Sani paver wasn't working alone. It was the lead unit in a coordinated fleet of around 10 autonomous construction vehicles, all operating in perfect sync. Rollers, material transfer machines, compactors, all of them communicating in real time, guided by satellite to centimeter level positioning, supervised by an artificial intelligence system that processes the entire job site as one connected organism. Think about what that actually means. While the paver lays asphalt, the rollers behind it are already calculating their compaction patterns based on the exact temperature of the mix. Material trucks roll up at the precise moment the supply runs low, never early, never late. If a stray object appears in the path, the entire fleet detects it and adjusts before any human would even notice. Emergency stops, course corrections, speed changes for varying terrain, all happening automatically, thousands of times a minute, across the entire fleet at once. And the road they built? Engineers who inspected it afterward couldn't believe what they were looking at. Smoother, flatter, and more uniformly compacted than anything human crews could produce. Faster to complete, cheaper to operate, safer for everyone because there was nobody on site to get hurt in the first place. Here's the part that should genuinely change how you think about the future. The Sani paver isn't a prototype gathering dust in a research lab. It isn't a single demo for the cameras. It is shipping. It is operating. It is laying real public highways right now, while the rest of the world is still arguing about whether self-driving cars are safe enough to merge onto a freeway. That's why this machine ranks number 1. The other 9 on this list are tools. Bigger, stranger, more powerful tools, but still just tools that humans operate. The Sani paver isn't a tool. The first isn't a tool. The Sani paver, it's a coworker that doesn't sleep, doesn't tire, doesn't make measurement errors, and doesn't quit at 5 o'clock. China didn't just build the most unusual construction machines on the planet. China built the first machines that don't need us at all. And every other country on Earth is now racing to catch up to a future that has already arrived without them.